One of the things, Maggie, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this is that if men don't handle grief well, and everyone has grief in life, I'll come to that in a minute, then they start getting angry for things that they don't realise. Well, why am I getting so angry? And I was at a football club and at Men's Health Week, and I'm patron of one of the Australian clubs, so a lot of people in the room and asked me to talk about men's mental health. And I loved doing it, I tell you. And I talked about a friend of mine that I played football with who took his life, and it was quite poignant. But I said, as a doctor, scratch the surface of anyone over the age of 40, you will find grief. Everybody. The grief will be about their parents getting old, dying, whatever, or some issue with their parents. The grief will be about their partner, their marriage is not working, or their work's not meaningful, or maybe they've got stress at work, losing their job. About themselves getting older and not being young anymore. About their kids. But there's grief just below the surface. And the question is, how does a man handle that? So I looked around at all the tables, and they were all over 40, I think, pretty much, or maybe 80%. And I said, given what I just said, and you're here with your friends at the footy club, here's my question. Do you know what's going on to the person next to you? So I've got two simple tips. Number one, ask. How's it going? And don't put up with BS. You can say, I'm fine, COVID knocked me around a bit. No, come on. I really want to know. I'm your friend. And my second tip is such a simple one. It's such a winner. Ask the second question. So someone says, during COVID, the business went under, but, I'm soldiering on, guts of determination. Our tendency in our culture, and this is not, is to boomerang back to yourself. Oh, yeah, I had that too. Or my brother had that too. And tell your own story. Here's the tip. Ask the second question. Well, that must have been tough for you, mate. Oh, yeah, I'm soldiering on. No, I want to know. How's it going now? Stick with them. Ask the second question. And by doing that, men become able to actually share and know that someone actually gives a damn about them, which is, there's an epidemic of male loneliness for all sorts of reasons. And if you want to handle grief, you've got to get it out there. And you want your kids to see you handling grief that way too. You want your kids to see big tough dad, the farmer or whatever, football or something. Well, the dad, the hero. I want to see him vulnerable and maybe crying. And sharing, seeing him share with his mates, and not all of that BS that you talked about. Oh, yeah, toughen up, princess.
And I want to back for that, having worked in death and dying for a long period of time while I was in Western Australia, but also when I go after there's been major, natural disaster like floods or bushfires. And I remember going down to Esperance after their big fires, and I worked with the community, but the men asked me back in the shed by themselves, because what they'd identified post-trauma was a bunch of men that fought for 5 days with no extra help, right? And they lost one of their own, one of their really strong community men, plus a couple of his workers. But every day when they drove around, they could see the devastation of what they hadn't been able to achieve. And apparently they were really struggling. They were all still feeling really crap and thought, why? I had to be able to go down and explain to them, this is not necessarily depression, this is grief. This is situational distress where you weren't able to be the hero and fix it. And it's in your face every day. You haven't failed. You absolutely haven't failed. But it's normal to feel this for quite a period of time, because every day you're reminded of it as you drive around. So one of those suggestions was, that sometimes I know that the women are saying, why don't you talk about it? You'll feel better if you talk about it. And I can tell you, no, it often is not what they need to do, but that they will process it, and then they get to a point where it's comfortable to speak to someone or say something. And what happened after I'd been down there, Blaze Aid was there, amazing organisation that are down there helping rebuild fences. And quite often they're couples, retired couples in caravans, and they've got a campfire every night. And over the following weeks, what happened was that some of these farming men or some of the men from the community would just turn up at 9 o'clock for a quiet beer or coffee or something with a couple of the Blaze Aid guys, and sometimes they would talk to them, or sometimes they would cry in a safe space without anyone around witnessing. And so in death and dying, I often found sometimes it was, I wasn't part of the nursing staff, I was part of the bereavement support team. It'd be when I bought the cup of tea in and just sat down and checked in on how their cat and dog was or whatever it was, and then sit in silence with a man And then quite often, they're not alone in the pain, but they don't have to share it. And then sometimes they'll come out with the thing that worries them the most, and that is, who's going to look after my cat?
One of the beautiful things about what you've said is the fact that these they're people who know what they're talking about. They've always been interested, Maggie, in the fact that when I've a patient who's been a soldier, they never say, "Oh, I have malaria in the islands," and they won't tell you about you're at the islands. They won't tell you until they know that you're safe. Yes. So my dad was RSL president, and I'm totally respectful of that. Once they know that I'm allowed into the inside, and I find that with curiously my ex-football mates, because I'm someone who's sort of played footy with them, and then I'll give an example. We had a father-daughter thing at the football club, and one of the daughters of one of my old mates, a guy named Gary Sidebottom, I say his name, he was a champion footballer, lovely bloke, and his daughter was a nurse. One of his daughters, she came and said, "Bruce, will you talk to Dad? He's dying of cancer, and he's not talking, and he's so sad, and he's so sort of, he can't handle it." So I did. I thought, this is what I do. It's in my living, So I sat down with him, and I've done that quite a bit, and it's because I'm, I feel like, on the reservation. But I'll tell you one other thing too that I found really helpful. I'll tell you, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. It's a phrase that is, your wound is your gift. You feel wounded, but once you talk about it and handle it, your wound becomes your gift. That is, you become a much better person at helping other people. And I say this actually just out here. I was talking to a guy who was in his 50s dying of cancer. He wanted to come and see me. He was desperately worried that him dying young, he's a mate of mine from down the road, that him dying young would forever damage his kids.
Yeah.
And I said, of course you'll always be missed.
Yeah.
Like an amputation.
Yeah.
You'll always be missed. But the way you have handled your dying, because you knew you were, you're getting to this point, was so beautiful that your kids, whilst they're going to forever miss you, are going to be softer, warmer, more empathic, beautiful human beings to be around. Their wound is their gift. And as long as it's handled well, grief, for your kids and for you, dads, your wound can be your gift, and you can be the gift to other blokes who are struggling with their own grief.
Yeah, and own how hard it is, and isn't it that conditioning again? You cannot be vulnerable in the face of death. You can't. Yes, you can. It is the vulnerability that takes the most guts and courage and brings everybody closer when we can be honest. A number of times I worked in palliative care when the man who was dying was saying, "Don't tell them, but I don't let them." And I'm going, stop that rubbish, right? I don't want them fussing. And it's not the fussing, it's let's be authentic about the feelings around it. This sucks, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it together with a bit of honesty and authenticity.
Absolutely. And I'll just finish by saying that an uncle, my favourite uncle, really, all due respect to the others, he died.
Got favourites.
No, he was just one of these uncles who was a great ritual, the details probably about he died, and I cried. And my son, who was probably about 10 or 12, said, "That's the first time I've seen you cry."
Wow.
And I thought, I've let him down. I'm glad he saw that.
Yeah.
But I have cried, but I haven't let him see it.
Yes.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
He needs to see that being vulnerable doesn't make you weak.
Yeah. Cry at the movies in front of your kids.
Yeah.
Brilliant.